Welcome back to the Earth Keepers podcast. This season, I'm welcoming a series of thought provoking guests to the show to discuss where exactly humanity is headed and how we can collectively create the future we'd like to see. We began the season by discussing ideas around creativity, storytelling, songwriting, and myth to begin to imagine new realities here on Earth. Now you're hearing from guests who are creatively working with sound, crystals, light, animals, and sacred geometry to help us remember how our reality here on Earth actually works and how we can creatively bring some of this ancient future technology into our daily lives. It's my deep hope that these conversations will stir something within you, or perhaps light a spark in your imagination for what you might be able to bring forward from the depths of your imagination into this reality. I think it's going to take all of our ideas, visions, and inspired action to arrive at this unknown future timeline. So, my hope is that this season inspires you to bring your own bit of magic into the world to help usher in what's next for us all. Before we get into this week's episode, if you're feeling inspired to go deeper and want to support the work it takes to bring this podcast to life, I'd love to have you join me in the Earth Tenders Academy. The Earth Tenders Academy is my online course and community where you can learn more about the history and energy of the community that you live in, hold space for the healing of humanity and nature, remember more about your specific gifts and role with the earth, and see the true magic held in your everyday environment. I invite you to step into this portal with me and hundreds of other Earth Tenders from around the world. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more about the Earth Tenders Academy and join us in this beautiful community. And now, on with the show.
Kiskuna atasha sina, we kura andai atishkaskana ina, we hukunai atesiriata hukurata naishta.
You have likely heard or experienced what's often referred to as light language before. But what exactly is it? Although it may have found some popularity in spiritual circles in recent years through social media's wide reach, its origins go back to ancient time, with references as far back as the 2nd century. Here in the United States, the idea of speaking in tongues is usually associated with the Pentecostal Church, a charismatic Christian religion where the gift of the language is believed to be a result of baptism with the Holy Spirit. In 2006, researchers at the University of Pennsylvania studied images of people's brains while they spoke this language and found that it involves submission to a higher power, leading to a very intense experience of how the self relates to God. My guest today, Kari Allison, says that light language opens a portal between dimensions. As her experience with channeling in this way has unfolded, she has seen what can be unlocked for people who learn to do this for themselves. She believes that when you consciously work with your own unique light language, you're in the process of living your soul purpose and contributing to the evolution of the earth, humanity, and the entire cosmos. The light that you communicate with is encoded with your innate soul essence. This communication, while expressed verbally, is actually received telepathically in a heart to heart, soul to soul communication. It can be emotionally soothing, helpful in releasing traumas from cellular memory, unlock dormant wisdoms within, and send waves of unconditional love and a sense of well being over the recipient. It can also shift our energy to a higher frequency and help our brains enter the receptivity of the gamma state, which connects multiple areas of our brain. Gamma waves are associated with increased memory recall, sensory perception, focus, processing speed, and creativity. So, whether you learn to channel light language for yourself or you receive it from someone else, it can have incredible healing benefits. Its transformative power lies in the ability to bypass our thinking minds, downloading entire concepts into our subconscious, structured by sound. Now, you just heard a bit of Kari's channeling already, but towards the end of the episode, you'll hear her bring through two different messages with two very different soul signatures. and it might just encourage you to try it out for yourself if you haven't already. So, without further ado, here is my discussion with Kari Allison. Well, welcome, Kari, to the Earth Keepers podcast. I'm so excited to have you joining me here today.
I'm so happy to be here. I feel like I've known you for a long time, and I'm glad to be able to be here with you today.
Yeah, well, we met because you're a member of the Earth Tenders Academy. And so I would just love to hear, obviously, we've known each other for a number of years, but I'd love to hear more about how your spiritual journey unfolded, how your work with the land kind of in was involved in this as well, and what your journey's been like.
Yeah. So actually, the way that I found you was because very early on in my spiritual journey, I had hawks coming to me all the time. And so I literally Googled, what does it mean when hawks seem to be following you? And I found your blog from that. So when I say, yeah, I feel like I've known you a really long time, I really have. It was just a blog, I think, then. And you hadn't even launched the Earth Tenders Academy. And so my spiritual journey got started, like many people's, through some suffering, through some personal life suffering, where I kind of felt like I needed to seek out what was real and true about myself. And so was following your blog and several other things as I was being fed the little breadcrumbs along the way. And so then, yeah, when you opened the Earth Tenders Academy, it made so much sense to me because I felt like a big part of my healing journey was being out in nature and hiking. And I'm super fortunate. I live in North Carolina and we have the beautiful Pilot Mountain just 30 minutes away from us. And I feel like what I know now is that it's an energetic grid point, and the whole mountain just feels like this huge crystal. And so it's so healing to be there, and so soothing and calming and clearing. And it just made so much sense to join the Earth Tenders Academy and begin working with the land. And it's just my process has just morphed so much along the way, to where I now am able to channel like spirits of the land, like spirit beings that are on the land and whatnot, and their light language comes through me now. So I feel like it's just progressed and progressed, and it's been such a cool unraveling to see that happen and unfold. It's just a fun journey.
I love it. I love it. And I know within the Earth Hunters Academy, we've connected with the energies in North Carolina in a few different places and with Pilot Mountain as well. So yeah, it's the energy there is really special and unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. And I feel like it really draws a lot of healer type people to this city because of that. I feel for sure. It just has such a magnetic pull to it. It's really amazing. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because in Earth Tenders Academy, especially, we talk about like all the different kinds of ways people can receive information and channel information. I write a lot of information or a lot of messages that kind of come through me, but there's so many different ways to connect in and bring through messages in that way. And so you've been doing a lot with toning and light language. And so I just love to hear more about kind of how you feel those integrate together and how it opened up for you to bring information through yourself in this way.
Yeah. So, so the light language came to me first, and it was one of those things where I was in a healing session with a friend of mine, and he would say that what he does is called healing prayers. It's language that you don't understand, and he would express it to his clients as healing prayers. And he said to me in one session, "Can you do what I do?" And I said, "I don't know." But secretly, I already knew, like, deep down, it's like, oh. So I went home and started Googling. I didn't even know what to type in. And so I was like, I don't know, let's type in speaking in tongues, even though that didn't feel comfortable to me, but I needed like a starting point. And so somehow then I found the phrase light language and I was like, oh, okay. So I found a video that a very short video clip where a woman was speaking light language, maybe like a 2 minute clip. And I watched it and I just immediately welled up with tears, began crying. It felt so like comforting and so familiar. And I was like, wow, I don't know what just happened. That was really interesting. And then I started, now that I had this word, light language, or this phrase, I started Googling that and found a blog post about light language that had this heart chakra meditation embedded in it, that was a little video that you could watch. It was really mostly audio with some pretty visuals. And so I listened to that. And when I listened to that, this woman, there was all this like sound instruments, these beautiful, sound healing instruments playing. But this woman began speaking light language. And I found myself speaking back to her. And then I also found myself making symbols like over my body. And I was like, I stepped outside of myself for a moment. I was like, what are you doing? And I said back to myself, oh, I'm healing myself. And so I was putting these codes over my body and saying these things. And I could feel that I was healing and shifting things inside of myself. And, you know, when something happens like that, that's so wild, um, your cynical mind can maybe doubt the veracity of it. So I was like, all right, maybe that was just a fluke. Let me do it again and see what happens. So I listened to the meditation again. Of course, the same thing happened. It looked different that time, but same thing happened. I was able to speak again and all that. So I was like, wow. I mean, it was just a spontaneous thing that erupted from my body. And I wasn't mimicking what she was saying or anything to that effect. It was almost like I was speaking back to her. So, anyway, so now I have this tool, light language, and I just began speaking it to myself around the house. And over time, I gained more confidence. I'm like, wow. And I have a really dear friend, Carly, who is so supportive of me. And she's like, Kari, this is really powerful. I think this can help people. So we start like easing into like sharing it here and there with people. And so I host a once a month cacao ceremony with Carly, and she and I where we would always offer like a guided meditation with usually a verbal guided meditation with some sound like drumming or what have you. Well, I brought my singing bowl one day, and she was walking around doing her guided meditation, and I was strumming the singing bowl and began toning, and she began toning, and we were toning together, and we're like, whoa, what is happening? We hit this harmonic resonance that just like it made all the hairs on the back of my neck are standing up right now recounting it. Just we just hit this resonance where something was definitely happening, and then my light language started coming through. So it was like we were weaving the toning and the light language together. And it feels like what happens is that the toning kind of opens up a space and creates this space in the waveform energy, and then the light language rides that wave and goes into the person's being, into their resonance field, and then they can accept and receive the information. So the cool thing about light language is it just bypasses the conscious thinking mind. You can't understand with your logical analytical mind what is being said, but your body and your soul understands it and can receive it on whatever level it needs to. So that's how I have woven those two together, and it feels amazing. It's like I want to do it all day every day. That's all I want to do. I hope
Well,
that answers your question.
yeah, absolutely. And I love that description because that's always been my sense with toning too, is it bypasses our mind and is opening things up. So what a beautiful description about how then the light language is kind of flowing through on that tone or on that frequency in a way that our bodies recognize and understand, even
Yeah,
if our conscious mind doesn't.
that's right. Yes, yes. It's so amazing.
Well, Tell me what your sense is while you've been working with light language as to, what is it or where does it come from? Or, I mean, not that anybody has the exact answer or knowledge, but what is it? What does it do? Where does it come from? What have you found as you've been on this journey?
Yeah. So I am definitely the type of person that while I love like scientific information and love to get affirmations and confirmations about things, like you think one thing and then you get this confirmation scientifically, about things in quantum physics, it's like, yes, I knew it. But for the longest time, I didn't really question it. It just felt so good that I just let it flow. So, more recently, as I've been sharing it more and more publicly, because for a long time I didn't share it publicly, it just felt so vulnerable. And, the old kind of wounding about potentially being harmed for something that's so different, like kind of bubbled up inside of me. And so it kind of kept me quiet for a long time. But as I began sharing it more and more, it was like, yeah, really, where does this come from? When I need to try to explain it to people, where does it come from? So um, I kind of had this download, and it's really just a working theory that there are stories in the Bible about the Tower of Babel, if people are familiar with that. So, the Tower of Babel, these all the humans were trying to create this ladder up to heaven so they could be close to God. And the myth is that God said, "No, we can't have that," and so He broke them apart and made them all speak differently, so their language would be confused, so they couldn't work together anymore. Well, I'm wondering, like, how much of that is symbolic? Is there anything to it? Is there any myth or lore to it that really is? Maybe at one point in time, I feel like in spirit form, say when we're with divine source, when we're with God, whatever you want to call it, when we are without body, there is this one language that we all speak. When we are one in consciousness, maybe there is this one language we all speak, and maybe that's light language. And maybe that's why when everyone hears it, I hear 9 times out of 10, I hear this, it's so familiar to me. And it's like, how can something that sounds so wild to us by all intents and purposes sound so familiar? And so, in the little bit of research that I've done, thankfully more is kind of coming out about it. But, yeah, we're all just theorizing. It's been called light language, heart language, soul language, ancient tongue, mother tongue, just these different words where we're trying to encapsulate something that's really pretty indescribable. But I feel like it really just comes from your soul's essence. In short, I feel like it's the language of your heart. And that's why it can bypass your conscious thinking mind. And another reason I feel like light language came to me is I was always the little kid who was trying to practice telepathy. I would try to practice all the extrasensory perceptions and was fascinated with that. But I always try to practice telepathy. And as I grew up, I found myself saying quite frequently, oh my gosh, I wish there would just be telepathy because language seems so limiting to me. I felt like I couldn't express myself fully through modern language. And so I feel like that's another kind of cool component of light language, that because it is coming from your heart, it helps you express yourself more wholly and fully than maybe English or German or what have you. And so yeah.
It's so funny because that's how I always describe talking with the spirits of the land too, right? Or trees or animals or whatever, of like they all have a common language, right? Like we're the ones that have invented language too. And then like, 100 languages so that we can really not understand anybody.
Yeah.
And that, everything else is talking on this like energetic, telepathic frequency that we just aren't in the habit of doing anymore.
Yes. Which is why I think it's so fun how language sounds like sounds and tones and different things like that. Because yeah, I think it's trying to amalgamate frequencies and energies into something digestible to the human vessel. Since we are not just in spirit anymore, it's like, well, we have to hit, the different frequencies, and so our ears can hear it, and our body can feel that resonance, that vibration. So yeah, super fascinating.
It is interesting to think about too, because I our language most likely wasn't designed to interact with our energy field, or of course it does, right? Like, of course our bodies and our energy fields respond to it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't designed for that, where this universal language was, in many ways, if you've experienced it, like it opens up your field in a very different way than we might think of as our common language.
Yeah, that's so fascinating to think about. Like, yeah, about how our civilized language is actually, I mean, that whole word, the word civilization. And so we could go down a whole road on that and how that is really the antithesis of what the word is supposed to mean. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it kind of makes sense that our civilized language would fall short as well.
yeah, at least that would be my sense. So who knows the actual origin, but
Yeah.
my feeling would be that it wasn't created in that way or with that purpose. So,
Yeah.
well, you mentioned that you do some, ceremonies, cacao ceremonies, different things in person. So I get the sense that you enjoy working in person, in community. And I was just hoping you could share a little bit about what your experiences are like when you share these, um, share these experiences together with other people, and some of the things that happen when you come together.
Yeah. So, this new offering that has come out of the cacao ceremonies where we began toning and combining the toning and light language, we call this new experience the resonant body experiential. And it is amazing because we get everyone together. We take a walk in nature first to get grounded and connect. We do some work with the trees, like we connect in with one particular tree and envision that we're creating this toroidal field connected with the trees, and that's really beautiful. And then we come back and we do breath work, and I think the breath work is really, really important for opening up our bodies, opening up our nervous systems, relaxing our nervous systems, oxygenating our body. So that makes us more ready to receive. And then it's just amazing. We have all the chakra singing bowls, and we have the group of people laying on the ground on yoga mats in between myself and my friend Carly. And we begin toning, and we began playing the singing bowls and toning, and then, like I was saying before, then the light language rides in through there. And we've had people have, first of all, first and foremost, most people feel extremely calm and just in a blissful state. But we've had people, you'll see people kind of like writhing around as the energy is working through their body and moving things out of their body. We've had people crying. We've had people laughing uncontrollably. Um, and it's just all sorts of states of the human experience is what we've seen. And some of the things we've heard people say afterwards is like, this is the most this is the most trippy I've felt sober ever. One man said that he went outside of his body and was hovering over the whole room, looking down at all the people below him that were in the group with him, and he just felt amazing. People definitely have visions. It is very much like an extended shamanic journey, or maybe not extended, but a shamanic journey. And so it has just been, I swear, it feels like we're creating this grid and this vortex of energy that just goes up and out of the whole place. And I would love to be able to see with my physical eyes what the energetic field looks like um, as the energy is just crescendoing, and like, what does that look like? What does the grid look like? What are we doing? What's happening? I did have an experience um, at a friend's saltwater pool. We had everyone in the saltwater pool, which of course is, just carrying that huge charge anyway. And we were all in the pool, and myself and another friend could see the Metatron's cube grid that was made out of our bodies and going through the center of the pool. It was amazing. So we have had just like amazing experiences that you just feel so connected to one another and connected to nature, and really in your body, but also super expanded at the same time. It is just, it's really challenging to describe, actually. I feel like I've said a lot of words, but have I said anything to really encapsulate what it's like to experience it? I'm not sure.
Well, it sounds amazing. It sounds magical, especially being in water. You just think, the layers of things that are being included between water and geometry and sound, and what a cool experience to put all of those pieces together and then amplify it by being in a group of people like that.
Yeah. And speaking of water, I feel like that's kind of the number one thing that is happening, is that I feel like we're restructuring the water in our bodies. I feel like that's the bottom line, is that as we're creating these tomes, and this language is pouring through these codes, it's all coding. And so we're recoding and restructuring the water within our body. And using that pineal gland as the crystal, as the tuning fork, as the rod to like receive the information, and then it just restructures everything within. It's absolutely, it's just so cool. Can't believe this is my life.
I love it. I love it. That sounds amazing. And yeah, really working with our body in that kind of like pressurized crystal way, what a amplification I'm sure it is in the field around us when our bodies get kind of retuned like that.
Yeah. And so something I'm trying to focus in on things too, where someone could come to me for a healing service where I can remotely or in person focus on one thing. If they have one physical issue or an emotional issue or what have you, I can transmit codes for them that they can then listen to on repeat. And we are even, I have like little bottles like this where I'm charging the water with the codes, and create a tincture for people that they can then take internally to help restructure that water. So super excited. I feel like it has just so many opportunities for helping people and reaching people, and just helping people expand and feel great and be happy to be here and be able to be in resonance with themselves so they can bring their best self forward. I'm super excited about it.
I love that. I love it. Yeah, well, on the note of working with the land, and I love that you incorporate in your sessions kind of that initial being outside and connecting with the trees, but it's always so fascinating to me. I should make a list at some point because I can't always remember all of the different ways, but you know, part of what we do in Earth Tenders is really kind of help everybody explore what their special gifts are in working with the land, right? The way that I do it doesn't have to be the way everybody does it. And it's been remarkable to me to hear over the years all of the different ways that people have found to work with the spirits of the land, work with the grids, work with the earth itself. And so I'd love to hear how, in addition to working with people, also you're bringing this work to the land and to the grids.
Yeah. So I really just had that realization as we were working in the pool. It felt like well, that's not true. It's not just that time. There have been multiple times where I see like this dome of a grid coming out of the center of what we're doing. And it feels like it connects down into the ground, into the earth. And I just feel like it's sending these healing vibrations over the earth. The other cool thing is that another way that I've been working with the land or the spirits of the land is that as these transmissions are coming through, it feels like it's the land or nature beings on the land, or sometimes people that are living on different timelines than we are. Um, they're coming through and letting me vocalize what, like using my human vessel to vocalize what the tones that need to happen to bring healing to the land. So that happened just recently where I made that connection with when we were in the saltwater pool. It was like, oh my goodness, because the language that was coming out, that was kind of like a collective aha. Like one lady in our group was like, yeah, you're speaking some kind of indigenous language. And I was like, yeah, I mean, just it's wild what comes through. And you just trust that it's doing the work that it needs to do. So yeah. So channeling the people and spirit like beings, like, fairies, whatever it might be, on the land, to let them work through me as a human so that I can vocalize whatever needs to happen. Just using me as a tool is how I've been trying to work with the land and seeing what I can do. And we have a beautiful vision of going to Pilot Mountain and really doing a lot of intentional toning work there, where we can surround the knob. And we were trying to figure out how many people would it take, and we could all tone together and create something beautiful there. But yeah, that's a little bit of what I've done to try to work with the land, and just channeling whoever comes through, like whether it be Bigfoot or whomever.
Yeah, and I think we can dismiss toning sometimes as, too simple, or, I should be doing more, or, it's that is just not as powerful as it is. And I have seen time and again, and it's interesting. I think I talked about it on the episode with Carrie Bennett about the message that the spirits had shown me about moving a tone through my heart in a infinity loop between my heart and the land. And it wasn't until, they didn't explain it or give me some scientific explanation. They just said, do it like this. And so and it feels good, but I didn't really know, the deeper meaning until she was really explaining how our hearts work to do that. And I'm like, how magical, right, that these beings can connect with us and share how to do that. And all we have to do is, go outside and tone and open our hearts up, and just the magic and the healing that's available when we do that and connect with the earth. It just, astounds me every day.
Yeah, and I feel like it's so much more pure to go outside and just belt out this beautiful tone that share from your heart, that shares all your gratitude for nature and the earth. Like if we were to try to articulate it in words, like to me that just seems exhausting, and like it would just fall short of how we really feel. So yeah, I love that idea of just toning from the heart and just letting that wash over the land in appreciation and gratitude and healing whatever it needs.
Yeah, and kind of just trusting that the finding those right tones within ourselves is the way of the land, helping us tune it as well. So yeah, it's always just such a beautiful experience when I have that on the land as well. So
Yeah, and I feel
you
like that's all that channeling really is just trusting, like, oh, my body wants to do this certain thing right now. And so, and you trust it and you make that sound. It's like, oh, that feels really good. Now it would feel good to make this tone. Yeah. That's all channeling is. It's just trusting the flow coming through you. Okay.
Okay, well, you mentioned Bigfoot just briefly, and I know you have connected with our Bigfoot family as well. And I'd just love to hear more about your experiences and what has transpired in the woods with Bigfoot.
Yes. So yes, there I have a group of friends that I go into the woods with, and there's this certain space that we go that seems to be very active. There's got to be some kind of portal on the land there. It seems to be a very active entry point for all sorts of different beings. And so we've seen all sorts of seen, felt, whatever, depending on people's ESPs, um, different beings there. And definitely is a place for Bigfoot. And in this group of friends that I have, there are tons of Bigfoot lovers amongst us. And so and really, you got me more interested in Bigfoot because I just hadn't really given it much thought. I'm an East Coast girl, and that's just not something we know all that much about. You know, growing up, I didn't hear about it. And so, yeah, so we were in the woods one night, and we go at nighttime and wait until it gets pitch dark and just watch and wait for beings to come out. And I was with a friend of mine who does also channel light language, and there were many of us in the group, but the two of us were together, and I felt this really huge energy start to enter my field. I grabbed a nearby tree for support. And I grabbed it just holding it, and then by the end of the occurrence, I was completely hugging the tree and hanging on to it so that I could keep standing. And so what happened was the energy of Bigfoot, whether it was one Bigfoot or Bigfoot consciousness, I can't quite tell you. It felt like, if I had to say, it was like three all in one that kind of came in. And the energy was so strong and big, it felt like I had a freight train running through my body. Um, and so when I began to speak, first of all, I'm grabbing the tree, my body is shaking. I've never had this kind of experience before. My body is shaking. It's hard for me to stand up straight. I'm like bent forward, like I want to get down and crouch on the ground just to support my body so it can hold all this energy. I had to grab my friend's hand that was next to me too. I was like, oh my God, I need you. And this transmission started coming through. I was like doing this guttural scream that I did not know that my vocal cords could do. It was so, ooh. And it's just this long transmission came through, tears pouring down my face, not because I was overwhelmed with like this loving emotion or anything, but just because it was so intense. What was the vibration that was rocking my body was so intense that my whole body was just like, what is happening right now? We are trying to maintain homeostasis here, and it's really challenging. So, I mean, I was just like bellowing is the best word. It was just bellowing this long message. And in my mind, my like little human self was thinking like, oh my gosh, when is this going to be over? What is going to become of me after this? But all was well. The energy left my body. I did collapse, and had to go sit down, and just, you know, body heaving from the experience and just shaking. I shook my way all the way down the walking path back to our cars afterwards. But it was amazing. It was so amazing that, one, I was able to even hold that energy, two, that they would trust me to let the transmission come through. And I feel like they were just trying to share, okay, you guys seem to love us so much and you really want to interact with us. Well, here it is. This is what we've got for you. And I mean, it was so fascinating. Um, and I felt really good afterwards. I felt very high after my body stopped all the all the things that it had to do, you know, all the shaking that it was doing and whatnot, to get reintegrated and balanced back to like, okay, now we're just, you know, we're just holding Carrie's energy now. It's just back to Carrie. But yeah, that was wild. And I think maybe I even wrote you about it after it happened. Maybe
I
I'll
think
just,
you did. I remember. Yeah. Do
yeah,
you remember like what the kind of gist of their message, or like what it was that they wanted to share?
it to me it felt like, on the one hand, sort of playful, it was like a playful energy, like you guys are really cute. You say you want to interact with us. Well, here it is. Um, and because we've got some ladies in the group, they're like, please, we just want to see you. We just want to, we won't tell anybody, that sort of thing. And so part of it was like, okay, you want to interact with us, here it is. The other part was it felt like we were getting activations. It's like, okay, you guys are progressing on your journey and it's time to level up a little bit. So definitely some activating through a little bit of clearing and whatnot. I mean, I definitely have lots of clearing, but I think I had to have the clearing in order to be able to hold that vibration. But yeah, playful, activating, clearing, kind of leveling up, helping us level up is what it felt like it was that day. And everybody kind
So
of had a little bit different experience with it too, just like as always. The words themselves, whatever was coming out, everybody kind of interpreted it differently for what they needed. And as we talked about before, I don't remember everything. Especially when I'm in that sort of state, I can't remember everything. So
no, I'm sure not. But what a remarkable experience to feel that. And
it's
while I haven't had that where they've like come through me in such a visceral way like that, I have had multiple experiences where I suddenly realize like that they're right there next to me. And it's so enormous and such a powerful, yeah, strong energy. Like no matter how, what your experience have been, you can't help but kind of be a little intimidated in that moment and a little overwhelmed by the enormity of their energy. It's really a strong energy.
yeah, it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating what every being's energetic imprint is, like what their vibrational imprint is. And it's so wild. Like when you start talking about it, I can totally tune into what they feel like. And I start feeling that feeling of like, oh, this is overwhelming. It's super cool. It's interesting how big their energy is. It's just, yeah, it like vibrates in this like large way. Words, it's hard with the words.
It really is. I don't know if I've ever told the story on the podcast before, but I was camped once in a tent by myself a handful of years ago, and there was some difficult energies on the land where I was, and I woke up in the middle of the night feeling like I was being dragged out of my tent, and it was energetic, but also like I had to wake up all the way before I realized I wasn't physically being dragged out. And so of course, like immediately I'm like calling in protection, calling it, come anybody, like come watch over me because I don't know what's going on right now. And I mean, in seconds, I realized like there's a Bigfoot outside the tent now. Like they came immediately. And so I was trying from inside the tent to like picture to see in my mind's eye what it was. And I could only see as high as like the waist, but the waist was, like at the top of my tent, right? It was just so enormous and so big. And I was both comforted and fearful. It took me a while to fall back asleep and feel like, okay, it's gonna be fine. Just close your eyes. You're being watched over. But yeah, it was that's one of the more intense, kind of close encounters that I've had, and I was not brave enough to unzip the tent and look outside.
I think that might be like a theme of all of our lives on a spiritual journey is it can be comforting and terrifying all at the same time. It's like
So true.
so fun and it's terrifying. It's like the best real life
Right.
coaster ride ever.
I'm retelling this thinking like this sounds really scary. Like in the moment, I don't know. I was kind of scared, but also like it's fine. They're here.
And yeah, and it was energetic. And then you realize like, wait, I'm the embodied one here. Back off.
Exactly.
Bring your tools from the Earth Tenders Academy.
Exactly. Leave my tent immediately.
A boundary here.
Well, I know that everybody would love to hear a transmission, and I know that you would love to share after we've been talking about this. So, and I think your sense is that probably you want to share from two different messages, so that we can kind of hear the different ways that the light language comes through. And so, if you want to share a little bit about kind of the messages and how we might receive them, and who you might be connecting with today.
Yeah, so I thought it would be fun to be able to hear the difference between what I would call like my own light language, like just my soul essence, what that kind of sounds like, and just a general message of love that I'm sending to everyone who is listening, and then I'll channel a different being, and we can talk about her in a minute. It's one of our faves.
I
So
love it.
yeah. So it takes me like a couple of moments to kind of get in the zone, um, going from like the state that we were in to kind of tuning a little bit inward. So, and you might see me, um, like I have a few little ticks and whatnot that sometimes happen. That happens more so when I'm channeling someone else as my body is trying to regulate the energy coming in from a different entity. But for myself, it's a little bit less so. So I'm just going to take a moment after all that laughing and calm and center. And you can just close your eyes if you want to, if seeing my face is distracting. And close your eyes and just listen to your heart. Hmm. Yes, kuna atasha sina. We kura antai atish kaskana ina. We hukunai atesiriata wukurata naishta. Siroanda yete kusara ora. Sina ina wukura atashta skina uno kiete. He unka ite suralite unakite shothuda. Sina ia kurai uretete skana ina ura. Sikuna ayata suta shasina ina wukura. Si I wura yete shanani akura inanisa usatana yete uku. Ho rayana unkatai shtaskara awatan. Isekina ina wura. Isekira ina wura. Ina kura yete sharatuna. Sekuna una. Okay?
Beautiful.
And that is me. Um, and now, um, Amy and I both love Sophia very much. And if you're not familiar with Sophia, she's the Gnostic symbolization of the creator of the physical earth, is my best knowing of her. And there are a lot of different mythologies around it, but she's kind of the divine feminine that brought forth the earth creation. So it will take me a moment to get in the zone to bring her through. I need to ask her first. And same thing with her. If you feel more comfortable with your eyes closed, you can. Sharing messages that can be helpful in this day. Uyonoa loa keo loa kuna akea lai o kuna ea Se shankuru Lora yino ayo ayu Shenai o soyana Ryo so sheayo Layo ku sheaya Yara suyane aso Lea shena woisu Koshani ansoraya tuya Igado sanayetai Kisharo koraya yayu Siasho kunayatai Gina kurayite shanai weka Sioku shono rainai Iastoraya Yatu eshunai Kisano aire Yosuya suna Lea tu no haya se we o usuya so ya iru.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
You'll notice the differences when I'm channeling a different being. Sometimes they ask my vocal cords to do something that is not always within my range. So it's like my body strains sometimes to do what it wants, and so you just work through it. But that's kind of the difference between when I'm channeling someone different than myself.
Yeah, and they didn't just sound different. Like to me, they felt very differently, right? Like it really felt like the essence of you coming through in that first transmission. It did to me anyhow. And so it's thank you for giving us those two different examples so that we can really feel how that feels.
Sure. And they're endless. I have channeled, I think it might be on my Instagram. I channeled the spirit of, I'm looking at my garden right now, and the spirit of Yara came through me one day, and I recorded that, and then I asked one day if a Viking wanted to come and come through me, and that was amazing. That's on my link tree if anybody wants to listen to that. That is like nuts. So much
Any Viking in particular?
His name is Score, yes. And he was awesome. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know my body could do this. My throat, wow, it was interesting. So super fun. So they all sound really different. I've channeled Kuan Yin, and that was really beautiful, like really soft. She's really soft, but also it did very much sound like this language that I don't know how to speak, beyond just light language. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's so fun. It's such a fun playground.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing this with us. And I mean, I would love to hear if you have any tips for people if they're working on unlocking this within themselves as to kind of how to start leaning into that and feeling into that.
Yeah. So I think if you're feeling a call to light language, either because of hearing this and feeling some kind of stir, or because you're just looking for a different kind of healing tool, like our breath is always with us, and our voice hopefully will always be with us, and so really just you can start by just toning around your house, like if we think about it, humming and singing to ourselves, things like that, those are already self-soothing mechanisms that we have that we just naturally do. Whistling, you hear these people I always think of like older gentlemen whistling as they are working, like in the yard or wherever. And so just starting to practice those things is a great way to get started. And then you're welcome to go to like my Instagram and whatnot and just listen to the different things that I've recorded, because I feel like hearing it um, over and over again can kind of help start having it bubble up and unlock in you. And there are plenty of great people on, the socials that are also speaking light language. So, yeah, I think just listening to it can kind of help it come out. And so, like, I have a light language workshop where that's what we do. I do a ton of messages while it's happening. We do throat chakra exercises and whatnot to try to help open it up. And it may not happen the first time that you want it to, but it's an unfolding. It's your confidence growing and your ability to do something that seems a little bit outlandish to our practical, logical thinking mind, but at the same time, it's just so natural. So, doing the things like toning and humming and whistling are a good way to just kind of start opening that throat chakra up more. And setting the intention that that's what you want, that you want that to come through. I'm a huge believer. Everybody that knows me knows I always say everything is energy and everything is intention. So, with intention, we create. So we take our energy, intend it towards something, and we create what we want. So, yeah, those are my tips.
I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you again for sharing. Let people know where they can find you and connect with you, or online and in person.
Yeah, so I'm in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's in the triad of North Carolina, and I do lots of workshops and things. Your best bet is to find me on Instagram. That's the one that I can seem to keep up with. And my handle on Instagram is Be Free Rooted. So BeFreeRooted. And yeah, and I have all sorts of resources there, and you just poke through and watch those different recordings and see if you can be inspired and awaken your own light language.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks for sharing all this with us. We've loved having you here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Amy.
Sending my deepest gratitude to Kari for this illuminating discussion, and I hope it's inspired you to think about channeling in a totally new way. If you enjoyed this episode and you think these ideas are worth spreading, I hope you'll share it with others. In the meantime, thanks for listening. And thanks for being here on the earth in this moment in time. I'll see you back here next week.